Hi, this is Tom Needham, and you are listening to The Sounds of Film. And I am very excited to have with us today on the program documentary filmmaker Ralph Arlyck. He's going to be speaking about his film, I Like It Here. Ralph Arlyck has been making acclaimed and award winning movies since the mid 60s. You may know his films Shaun and Following Shaun. In his newest movie, though, I Like It Here, Ralph contemplates not just the physical and mental tolls of aging, but the very substance of living well, of connecting with people, of appreciating life's simple joys. Ralph, I want to thank you for joining us on The Sounds of Film.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh man, I really enjoyed this film. Um, I guess first thing our listeners would love to hear is why you wanted to make this movie. I Like It Here, and how did the idea evolve over time?
Uh, it's hard to trace back. I sort of never know where ideas come from. They just sort of slowly sneak up. And I guess just at some point, I mean, for people who haven't seen the film, I started out to make it about this. I guess you'd call him a hermit. He's really someone living off the grid. Ernie, a neighbor of mine. And he soon disabused me of this idea. He wasn't going for it. So I sort of had to take a step back and say, what is it about Ernie that sort of moved me to broach this subject, and finally realized that it was really a larger question of how, I'm on the last lap. It's getting late, so I decided to take a look back and sort of muse about what it's like to be old.
Ernie wasn't the only focus in the film, but it was interesting just to see an example. You hear so much about it these days of someone actually living off the grid, but within like kind of close distance of people who are not living off the grid.
Right,
And
who take care of him?
yeah, exactly. Can you tell me a little bit about like what you learned about his decision to live that way?
Not very much. He started out living in. He was a Hungarian immigrant. Came over with a bunch of other fellow Hungarians, and they had it was like a big trailer park on 50 acres of land near here. And little by little, others sort of moved on and disappeared, and Ernie was the only one left. So he decided to continue to live off the land. But of course, what happens in your late 80s and 90s is you can't do that anymore. You need other people to help you, which is kind of a microcosm to what eventually happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the things is you talk to a lot of people, and you hear from documentary filmmakers quite a bit about how tough it can be to respect someone's privacy while at the same time trying to make a movie about people. And you strike a really interesting blend of neutrality and also revealing things about people and your views and so forth. Can you tell me as a filmmaker, how do you do that? I just loved your style and the way you handled it.
well, it's always a dilemma for a filmmaker. You're always invading people's privacy. But in this case, it was helped by the fact that they were my friends. It was my friends and neighbors who I was talking to. I was not coming up shoving a camera in the face of a complete stranger. But still, you're still compromising people's privacy. But I think if you're not making fun of people, which is something I would never do, uh, it's sort of it's a bargain. I mean, you're they're the clay for what you're trying to do, but at the same time, you're giving them a platform to say something. And although they may not see themselves that way, they may not see themselves as somebody who actually has a message to impart. Uh, People like they like to be on camera. They like to say what's on their minds. So I think that's that's the trade-off.
So, Ralph, you said you would never want to make fun of anyone. And yet, I think one of your trademarks is that there's humor in your movies, particularly this one. And I think part of it's achieved in that you do intercut your voice with narration throughout, but it's also the moments that you capture. And you just have a really unique comical tone that you carry throughout a film that's actually, you know, looking at some very serious topics. Tell me about your sense of humor and how you impart it in this film.
Ah, that's a difficult question.
Yeah.
uh, well, I mean, I just, I try not to take things with too much gravity or self-importance. I mean, I think we all sort of it it helps us to sort of step back and say, geez, this is funny. This is not something that we need to overly anguish about. And I didn't want the film to be a downer. I don't feel that way about aging, and I think the same is true for most of the people that I talk to. So I think I just want to sort of step back a little and see the pleasure and humor in some of the things that happen to us all.
And yet, it isn't a downer, but I was like sort of surprised. It seemed like everyone that you spoke to admits that they think about death all the time once they hit a certain age. And I don't know if that's true for all people. You've been screening the film at festivals. I'm sure you've heard from a lot of people. Is this the norm that once one hits a certain age that you just start thinking about it all the time?
Uh, well, it comes in and out. I think most people would probably say that what happens as you age is that you start losing people, you start losing friends, you start losing relatives, and this sort of hits you smack in the face, and you say, "Wow, feels like you know a tree next door is suddenly falling, and it didn't hit you, but there you are." Um, and there's a scene in the film which you might remember where I create this sort of spinning top,
Hmm.
and it points to all kinds of disasters. And I think that's we don't spend our entire lives, daily lives, thinking about that, but every once in a while, you realize that any day one of these disasters could fall on me. I think that's quite normal.
And yet the film seems to offer, as you suggested a moment ago, that this does not have to be depressing.
Yeah,
One might assume that if all your friends and family are starting to pass away and your time is near, that that could be scary or depressing. But for those who
yeah.
haven't seen the film, what have you learned about people that can offer people some hope that this doesn't have to be such a dark period?
Well, I mean, the main thing is, what are the circumstances of your life? If you know, it's been my experience that people who have suffered great losses don't find the film so humorous and uplifting. Life intervenes. But if if that hasn't been the case for you, I think you can probably enjoy it more. But I mean, I don't know. I think even if you've had some tough times, I think there are moments in the film which people would find.
There's also a
Um,
suggestion that, when one is younger, you're in pursuit of your career and, all of the things that people try and do. But at the end, um, there is some time for people to just start caring about the people around them. And it appears in your film that that's what you're doing and a lot of your neighbors are doing. It's just people helping other people. And that's meaningful, I guess, in some way.
yeah, I think it is. But at the same time, I suspect that for a number of people who are quote retired, there's still that question of, how do I want to spend my time?
Mm.
And that's always a big question. Do I want to, you know, do I want to do a lot of volunteer work, or kind of, what what can sustain me and the people around me? So I think for most people that's a tug. Do I want
Yeah.
to just fish and paint or do whatever, or volunteer, or do I still want to be in the game? Do I still want to do something related to what I did, the work I did for my whole life?
You really tackle existential questions in this film. And I was wondering how you developed your philosophy um, throughout life and how you decided the way you were going to show it in this film.
Wow, another tough one. It's interesting you mentioned existential, because you may remember there's a scene in the film with my old college friend Mel,
Mm-hmm.
who was an existentialist,
Yeah.
and who said, he had no interest in living beyond 30. And then I went up and found him where he was doing some teaching at Colgate, where we had both been freshmen, uh, and he changed his mind. He decided he wasn't going to check out at 30. So I don't know that I have a well formulated philosophy of life. I think, like most of us, I just take things as they come, and try to do my work, and enjoy my family and my friends. I had not ever formulated a particular philosophy of life.
It's not exactly in the film, but that scene that you did mention with your friend, I thought was significant because I've been noticing outside of your movie that there's been just so many stories in recent years. There seems to be a push. I don't know if you had seen it. I forget exactly where it was, but it might have been the Atlantic. Um, some famous, you know, um, thinker had come out and said that everyone should just like plan their death. I think it was at 75. And there's a real push to like legalize euthanasia all over the world. And this idea that maybe it's just better. Um, and it's an intellectual idea. But as you showed in the film, and it was, as you just mentioned, it's easier to say it when you're not going through it. But that very often, when people then get to that point, whatever age it is, um, there does seem to be a will to live. And I like in your movie how you're making a movie and someone else is painting and everybody has stuff to do, and it's still meaningful. So I don't know. It's just you touch on so many interesting topics in this film, and I was wondering, did you kind of just hit these different topics as they came up in the different people you were interviewing, or did you have certain themes that you wanted to try and explore?
Yeah, no, I didn't have an agenda for each interview. I really tried to approach it in as open a way as possible, and find out what my friends and neighbors were thinking. Um, that's really the way that I want to work. But your question reminds me. Did you watch all the way through and see the epilogue?
No.
Well,
Wait,
you got
wait.
to go back. you
Wait.
got to go back after all the credits, and I think a lot of people just turn turn the video off once the credits come up. But uh, there's an epilogue at the very end of the film where one of my friends, who I didn't finally, he had a scene in the film, and I didn't finally include him. But I wanted to save a particular moment in the interview, and so I just threw it in at the very end as an epilogue. And what he says is, I don't think about death much, but it's easy for me to say if I were having a heart attack in front of you, I would probably, you know, death would seem very real to me. But he says that's just, as Nietzsche said, it's living is the oldest habit.
Oh, wow. Can I tell you why? It's funny that you asked me that question. Why I guess I missed that was because I don't know if I'm cynical or I don't cry too much at movies, just
Mm.
honestly. And I didn't even see it coming. Um, but for some reason, when the credits came on, and I forget what song was playing, but a piece of music comes on.
Yeah, it's Andrew. It's Andrew Bird, "Hole in the Ocean."
Yeah, and um, I just started crying, and
Oh,
and
I'm very touched.
and and the reason why I didn't get to that epilogue is I had received a screener for this interview, and I loved the music in the film, so it's very hard to like pause it. And then I was looking, and I did look up that song, and it's several of the songs in the movie, and I put them on my Spotify playlists. Um, but I was
Oh,
wondering,
great.
yeah, so that's the reason because I just kept. It took me like a while to keep because every time I'd go back to the screener, I would have to sign in again. But I kept on freezing it, and I was looking up the songs. But that song over the credits, in combination of like what the movie ended with, was very, very powerful. And I was wondering,
Yeah, yeah.
is that the reaction
I,
that a lot of people are having?
well, I hope so, but I agree. And finding music for the film was, of course, a whole journey in itself because I first had a number of songs that I just grabbed off the air, published songs. And music in films is frightfully expensive, and towards the end, we realized that there's no way we were going to be able to afford all the music in the film. But I fortunately came across a very good composer named John Stone, and he redid a lot of the music in the film. But I kept those. I kept about four published songs towards the end of the movie
Mm,
because I felt that they were very. I felt they were essential.
yeah,
They really expressed emotions. I mean, I'm ambivalent about using music to sort of manipulate emotions, but I think it's true, and I think that does happen. And at least music for me is very emotional. It's probably the art that reaches me most. So I wanted to keep those songs, and particularly the Andrew Bird song at the end.
well, it's funny because I've heard some, critics say that it's manipulative to use music in
It is.
documentaries. Yeah, so I get that. But what I liked about this particular case was it was music after the movie, which a lot of films have songs over the credits. But
Mm.
somehow, just that music came on, and it made you kind of think about what came before it, and it just the combination was very powerful.
Yeah. Well,
Nicely
good.
done.
That's just
Yeah,
that was exactly what I'm hoping for.
yeah. So tell me, you've been showing this and been having great success at film festivals. Have you learned anything about the film after screening it in front of all these different people?
Well, it's two completely different processes. You make the film because it's what you want to express, and then you're faced with the dilemma of how you get it out there, and it's become very difficult to get people to go out to theaters
Mm-hmm.
to go see a movie in a cinema, which is what every filmmaker wants. You want your film to be seen by people in a dark room with a big screen with good sound with other people around, and it's very difficult to get people to do that because for a number of different reasons. COVID had a big effect, and then also, just the ease of screening things at home. We're all on screens, and it's just a lot easier just to pop it up on your screen and go through it. So that's the challenge, is trying to get people to come out to the theater, and that's what we're working on now.
Yeah. Why is it so important? It streaming does allow people, sometimes very large numbers of people, the opportunity to see a film that they may not have ever had a chance to see. And yet, every filmmaker I speak to still wants that theater experience. And in your movie, you speak to someone who works in your local movie theater and art house.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, why is that still so important to you?
Well, you want to do both. I mean, it's really nice to once the film has been in theaters, then when it goes out streaming or TV or video on demand, that's really nice because you reach a much wider audience, and sometimes you hear from people. They get in touch with you, which is great. But most of the filmmakers I know don't want to give up that experience because it just has a different impact
Mm,
uh, on people when they see it under really good conditions with other people in the company of other people. Uh, it's an experience that's starting to melt away, and that I, at least, and a lot of others, don't want to lose. And that's not just filmmakers; it's also people who have gone to theaters all their lives and don't want to lose that experience. It's just something we don't want to give up.
yeah, and you've been making movies your whole life, and you're one of those filmmakers who includes themselves in their films. And this is a big one for you. You're in there, and you touch on lots of different aspects of your personal life in the movie. And I was
Yeah,
wondering,
it's a big one because it could be the last one.
it could be. I hope it's not.
I hope not, but it could be.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? That it could be the last one?
Oh, I feel ambivalent, totally ambivalent. Uh, uh, Things will be a lot easier, but I really ask myself whether I'll be content just tending to my flowers and cleaning up my garage and um, having fun with my grandchildren. And is that enough? I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see.
We will see. Well, I can't emphasize how much I loved this movie, and I'm very hopeful that people are going to see it. It's going to be playing in New York City, and I was wondering, do you have a website or anything like that where people can look up the theater and the time that it's playing, and we'll post that information on our website and so forth as well. But we're going
Yeah,
to air
great.
this interview multiple times. So, where can people go to find out about your film and your work?
My website is called Timed Exposures. Uh, so it's just timedexposures.com. But if that doesn't bring it up right, just say timed exposures and my name, and the website will definitely. If you Google timed exposures and my name, Ralph Arlyck, it'll come up. But I'll send you the actual link.
Okay, great, and we'll post that because I think people are going to be excited about this. We've been speaking with Ralph Arlyck. His film is "I Like It Here." Definitely one of my favorite films of the year. And I think all of you are going to love it. So, Ralph, it's such a pleasure. It's a remarkable film. It's an important film, and it's very inspiring and humorous, and it's just a well-made film. So, congratulations, and I wish you the best with it.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.